Hi everyone, so I've been really excited to make this video for quite some time now because it's my first look at a company inside of Italy. And this is actually also a company that I'm weirdly familiar with. So I'll explain all of this in a moment, but first you're going to need a brokerage account that gives you access to the European markets. So if you're looking for a brokerage account that gives you access to international markets, is one of the safest in the world and the most reputable, there's a link below in the description. I use Interactive Brokers myself. It's definitely the go-to. All right, so the company is EdiliziAcrobatica or EdiliziAcrobatica. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but look, that's the name of the company. And the company provides outdoor construction works, facade and wall cleaning up, painting, balcony repair, roof renovations, using this, what they call the double safety rope access technique. Therefore, they don't need to use scaffolding. So think of all of the old buildings throughout Europe and especially in Italy that need work done to the building, but they need to be careful and they don't want it to look ugly with all the scaffolding around. So these guys abseil down off the roof and they're trained to fix whatever the issue is. So the reason this is weirdly familiar for me is that I actually have started a services business in Bali servicing things like the larger buildings with window cleaning services and gardening services and a whole range of other services we're building onto it. But the window cleaning part of it's very interesting because we do need to use scaffolding quite often. Scaffolding's annoying. It's annoying to set up. It's slow. It's actually quite expensive. It's ugly. And I've always thought that, if you could abseil down off the roof, this would be a far better way to do it. It'd be far quicker. It would be probably far safer. Scaffolding is not the safest thing to set up in the first place because you kind of got to climb up and you don't really have harnesses on. And so it's quite challenging. So I can see the safety aspect here of this double rope technique and the abseiling skills here that are required. I think that's a great advantage. Now, the reason Italy hasn't really ever been on my radar as a investable country is because a lot of their country revolves around the tourism industry or the car industry, and I'm not really interested in any of those things. Companies never really jumped out at me from that market, and I've really not spent much time there. They've had zero GDP growth for the last 23 years or something like that. So it hasn't been a great marketplace for great businesses, I guess, as a whole. The index would be very poor, I would assume. But I think this is a bit of a hidden gem inside of this market. And then there is a deeper write-up from undervaluedshares.com. I'll leave a link in the description. If you want to take a read of that yourself to get a bit more of an understanding, there's a better write-up than probably what I'm going to present here today. So I'm going to do my best to explain this and get through the history, the competitive advantages, the risks, their financial metrics, and then we'll eventually get to evaluation, and a summary of whether I think this is a great idea or maybe there's some red flags along the way. So let's jump into the history first. So Riccardo Lavino is the CEO and founder of the business, and must have been 15, 20 years ago, he was working on a yacht and he was quite good at having to go up the mast and using the rope technique that you need to get up and down off on the boat, on the yacht. And because he was quite good at this, a friend of his asked him, was trying to clean the gutters of his house in Italy, and Riccardo said that, maybe we could abseil down. It should be a lot easier than trying to get scaffolding or someone in to come and do this. And he helped his friend out, did it quite quickly and painlessly. And his friend gave him a bottle of wine. And essentially that was the idea that triggered him. He's like, well, why don't we train people to abseil down off buildings? Because it's safer, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it doesn't look so ugly. And you don't need to have scaffolding sitting up on a construction site for such a long period of time as well, because you've got to hire somebody to come and take it down. And abseiling just solves all that problem because you're in and out. Now they're up to about 120, should be a bit over that by now, locations mostly throughout Italy. That's their core market. But they have expanded into France, Monaco. I think there's 8 over there. Spain has 2. And they've just gone into partnership with a new operation in Dubai. The cool thing about that expansion into Dubai is that EdiliziAcrobatica are going to be now working on the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. Now, regarding the scalability of the business and how it kind of functions, well, one out of four businesses, so what would that be? About a 30 or 40 or so of their business units are franchises. So a franchise would have a manager, some salespeople, and a crew of workers. This is pretty scalable as the franchises act as separate business units, and they have the alignment because they want to make profit for themselves, and they just pay a licensing, like a franchise fee to EdiliziAcrobatica for help with the name, mostly the brand name, but also with gear, training, additional help if need be, etc. The franchise model, I think, is quite scalable. You could imagine that all the towns and cities throughout Italy or throughout France or Spain or whatever, if it doesn't have an EdiliziAcrobatica operation already in that town, and it may be over a certain size population, maybe 30, 40,000 people, it's probably a great place for a new franchise to start up. They could have a small little niche market to themselves, and I think there's a lot of these. I don't know whether you've been to Italy or Spain, but if you have, or France, there are just little towns everywhere, and all of them are old, and all of them have buildings that are going to need renovations done and facade work done, and you'll often see scaffolding everywhere, throughout buildings, throughout any of the cities you go to. There's always scaffolding around. So this is a big market, and it's a far superior service. Now, one thing they do have as well is they have these point of sales like offices essentially in towns and cities throughout Italy. And for me, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I wouldn't be walking down the street and walk past a EdiliziAcrobatica shop and say, "Oh, my hotel needs restoration works, and maybe this is a good alternative." So, the only reason I'm out on the street is if I'm buying something specific or I'm hungry. I don't think I'm shopping for Abseiling facade restoration work. So I'm not really sure why they have the sales offices, retail footprint in a weird way. I think the money on renting these places should be spent with more of a strong online presence. I think that money would be utilized better. That's my opinion. This is, I guess, my first objection so far with the exact model. But look, I also haven't asked them about whether these commercial locations are having a return on investment. I don't know those numbers, but it doesn't seem logical to me why they would have a commercial retail footprint to sell their services. They have been playing around with marketing stuff like this video. So I think more of this, more Facebook stuff, more Instagram stuff,
more YouTube stuff is a good way to grow rather than physical sales office expansion. Again, like I said, I don't know. I would love to see how the sales office actually work, if they work well or not. It's a pretty simple question for me to find out.
Regarding employees and finding employees, this is obviously going to be a big barrier because, there's quite a danger element / skill element involved in this. They've got 1,700 employees. Not all of them are obviously acrobats. That's what they would call them. And I think about a third, maybe half of them are actually acrobats. I like that it is difficult to recruit and train these people, and I don't like it at the same time. So it's difficult to get the people, but I like the difficulty because it makes it hard for competition to also have to compete. They've already got this big workforce of trained, skilled people. Yeah, they could leave and go start their own thing, but as EdiliziAcrobatica win more work and grow as a business and continue to be successful, it's going to be harder and harder to compete against them. So I believe that the difficulty in finding the workers actually might be an advantage. They've been shopping around at rock climbing centers, apparently, trying to recruit people who are obviously enthusiastic and enjoy climbing up things. And I think that's a pretty smart way to go out and try to recruit workers. But recruiting workers is always going to be a bottleneck of this business. So the business actually has really good margins. Their net profit margins sit at about 15%, which is actually really strong. I was looking at Instalco in Sweden, which is like trade-related businesses, and they target about 8% margins. So this is twice that, which I think is very interesting. So I think we've got the idea of this business kind of under control now. We've got a bit of a feel for what's going on. The next episode, I'm going to dive deeper into the numbers. I'm going to look at the deal that they did in Dubai. I'm going to look at the growth opportunities, and eventually we're working towards a valuation. So stay tuned for the next video, which will hopefully come out tomorrow, and I will see you then.